That's so not true. I mean, you can find love in your 40s and your 50s. There's not like, oh, you've turned this age. You don't get to get married. You don't get to have love.
Exactly. So, yeah.
It's
and I think, and Gerry and Teresa just proved that, 72 and 70, and they found love. Actually, Gerry found love with a lot of women, apparently.
They all loved him.
They really did. Welcome to Aging in Style, the podcast dedicated to celebrating aging and what it takes to do it well. I'm Lori Williams. I'm a certified senior advisor and senior housing expert. In each episode, you'll learn stories of older adults who are thriving in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and in some cases in their hundreds. Whether you're an older adult or the child of an older adult, this podcast is filled with insightful resources, organizations that are doing incredible work, and stories that will inspire you to volunteer, learn, and who knows, maybe even skydive in your golden years. Hi, welcome to Aging in Style. We're going to do our recap on The Golden Bachelor. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, The Golden Bachelor is part of the Bachelor TV series, but this time they had a person who was a senior. So the Golden Bachelor, golden years, I guess is how they got that, is a gentleman named Gerry, and he is 72 years old. So he had his whole bevy of beauties to choose from. They were ages 60 and up. I want to say the oldest was like in maybe 72 or 73. But we're going to talk about what our thoughts were on this series, what was different about the regular Bachelor with the younger generation versus the older generation. And to do that, I have Sarah Pollen back with us. Sarah works with me, and she is part of the younger generation. Sarah is 29?
30.
30. Oh, she's 30 now. That's right. You were 29. Weren't you 29 when we recorded the first one?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Now she's 30. And so she's the younger generation, and she watches reality TV, which I don't. So I'm glad we have her as our expert on The Bachelor on how these things usually go. And then I'm representing the older group because I'm closing in on 60 next April. So kind of my perspective and on what I thought of The Bachelor, The Golden Bachelor. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay, so the finale happened on Thursday, and Gerry picked the woman that he is going to marry and propose to her. And I don't know, does it end every season? Does The Bachelor end with them actually getting engaged?
Usually it does. That's like the goal of the show. But sometimes they will just say, let's just keep dating or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I think I would have to, because that would be, I don't know, it would be so weird to me, the whole idea of meeting someone in that way and being on TV the whole time. I mean, are they being their real authentic selves would be my question.
Yeah, it's so short too. So that would be really hard for me too. Yeah,
it is. So if you watch the show, if you haven't watched it and you don't know who he picked, then stop listening right now because spoiler alert, we're going to say who he picked and we're going to talk about that. So I'm going to give you a second to just, click off and go do something else or maybe go listen to the very first one we did about the Golden Bachelor. Okay, here's your minute to go get off. Click. Done. Okay. All right. So Gerry picked the woman, and the one he picked was Sarah.
Teresa,
yes. And you know what? Teresa was my favorite.
Because she was really mine too at the beginning.
She was the first date that he went on, and I thought she was a good fit for him. So we kind of went through, I don't know how many episodes, or were like 8 episodes maybe?
I want to say like 8 or 9 maybe.
Yeah. And so he went on dates with several and then would obviously eliminate. If you haven't watched The Bachelor, they give a rose to the ones who are staying. If you don't get a rose, then wonk, wonk, you're out of here, which is so brutal. I just can't imagine. But I mean, these ladies all put themselves out there, which, good for them. And Gerry really put himself out there. And not having watched the show, they did keep saying that he was very open. Did you find him to be more open than the younger Bachelors?
It really depends on the Bachelor. Some of them are very closed off, I think, maybe because they are younger, but I guess I did think he was really open. I feel like he was very open and honest about his life and what he was looking for.
Yeah. And he said a couple of times that, like he and Teresa are going to get married quickly because at their age, why wait? So that probably, I feel like was his thought process all along, is like he truly was there to find someone to live out the rest of his life with.
Yeah, I really like that too. Compared to a lot of the other, the Bachelor, the Bachelorette, a lot of times, even if they get engaged, they'll be engaged for like 5 years or something. And so it was, I think, they announced the wedding date, wasn't it like January
4th, and it's on TV.
Yeah.
And what I thought was kind of cool, they gave them a trip to Italy, because in the very first one, when they went on their first date, they said that they could, go to Italy and learn Italian together. It was something that they said. I remember them saying that because I thought it was cute. And so that's going to be their honeymoon.
That was really sweet. That they don't do that every season. So I thought that was cool. No, they don't do that.
Yeah. So, okay. So let me just ask some questions and talk about some things that I was like, oh, okay. And then we'll talk about the difference with, maybe this is a difference with being a little bit, on the older side. I don't know. So they have the finale. It was between Teresa and another lady, Leslie. And I did like that he picked, not necessarily like, but I thought it was interesting that the women ranged in age from 60 up. He's 72. The woman he did pick, Teresa, is 70 years old. So he didn't go with a 60-year-old youngin. He went with one that was closer to his age. And then Leslie, who was the second woman. So he had two to choose from in the finale. And Leslie was, I think, 64. So what I found kind of like an ick factor for me watching it was they go on a date and then they go to, what did they call it?
The fantasy suite, the special room.
the special room. They go to the fantasy suite, and that's where there's no cameras, so they can really talk. I'm doing that in quotes, so I don't know if they were really in the air quotes talk. They could really talk and get to know each other, which I do think they did. But after he had his fantasy suite was with Leslie first, and he's telling her, I love you. And, the next morning they show them and they're in bed together. And, it's like, okay, I'm thinking that's the one he's going to choose. And then he leaves her, bye-bye in the morning, leaves the fantasy suite and goes to meet up with Teresa for his second date. Now, honestly, he was a little distant with Teresa at first, didn't you think?
I did think so.
So, I'm kind of thinking he's definitely going to go with Leslie. But then, they're on the date, he and Teresa, and he says to her, I don't feel like I really know you that well. And tell me, like, what is your job? And she started talking about herself, and she's this very accomplished woman. She was a day trader and then had another really big job. And, she was an amazing woman. And his eyes kind of lit up because I think he saw her in a different light. Like the cynical part of me thought he was like, oh, she makes a lot of money. But that's just me being a little cynical there. So then he's like all like Team Teresa at that point. And then he invites her into the fantasy suite. And he's telling her he loves her too. So that's where I was kind of like, what is going on here? Is that the norm on The Bachelor, that they're like that, telling these different women they love them?
So that is a mistake that a lot of them make. And actually on most seasons, there are 3 fantasy suite nights. So there's actually 3 they're doing this with. And I have seen seasons where the man said, I love you to 3 different women, but it's always a big mistake, obviously, because the other women find out and they don't like that.
That's what I kept thinking. I'm like, okay, so Teresa is going to see what happened. And so before her date, she's going to see that he spent the night with Leslie and he's all over her saying he loves her. And then the very next day, he loves her. So, it's just, that was strange to me.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, when we were talking, I think if anyone has watched the show, they like learn from the other people and they're like, I'm not going to do that. Like they'll even say in the beginning of the show, I'm not going to make the mistake of telling like multiple women I love them. Like I'm only going to say it to one person. A lot of them say that. But then I think the ones that have never watched the show, they just feel those emotions. So they say it and then it always goes badly. Yeah.
I think the other thing that made me kind of a little bit cringe inside is that, you know, with the other bachelors, obviously they have not been married. They don't have kids and grandkids. And, you know, I mean, maybe some of them are married and have been married before and have a kid, but they don't have grandkids. Obviously, they're not old enough. But in this one, his grandkids are watching the show. And I'm like, okay, I can't even to imagine, kept using this term knocking boots when he was in the fantasy suite. And I'm like, that I just would not want that mental image of my grandfather saying such a thing and 2 nights in a row with 2 different women.
And that even goes back to kind of the first episode when he was kissing all those women.
Oh my God, yeah.
I think I would have been appalled to see my grandfather doing that.
And it's honestly not about age. And I do respect that he said that a couple of times, that, you're seeing that even though we're older people, that we still want love, we still want the physical connection and all of that, which is great. I mean, I think what we're kind of awkward about is that these are his grandkids are watching this show too. So.
And did you see on the part where he and Teresa are together at the very end, and she says something about the knocking boots thing? Yes. And then his granddaughter's face is, oh my gosh.
I think she might have covered her face. Did she do this?
Yeah, they were all hiding their faces. Oh my gosh, I can't handle it.
I was hiding my face for them. Oh my gosh. But I mean, it was interesting. And, like I've said before, I'm not really into reality TV. And I'm sure some of this stuff, and maybe some of this they do for the effect that, more people will watch the show if we think he's doing knocking boots or whatever. So, I mean, who knows what the reality is? There could be a whole other, it's just a whole agenda to get people to watch it and have some drama.
That's so true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But speaking of drama, that's something that was missing from the Golden Bachelor. So we had found the older women don't tend to be catty and fight like the younger ones, correct?
Yes, I feel like there was a huge difference between this season and the other seasons I've seen, because the women, there was minor little, difficult conversations, but some of the other seasons with the really young people, I mean, they can get very catty towards each other. Not every season, but it's really common. So they usually have a villain. And that's a big part of the show, I feel like, but I didn't feel like this season there was really a villain.
Yeah. And maybe probably that's why, once you get to a certain age, you've lived a lot of life and, there's no reason to go there. And, women acting that way, young women, it's ridiculous to me, but it would be I think extra ridiculous, someone who is older and more mature and has lived life, if they were being catty and acting like that too. So I'm glad about that we didn't see that. And I found it interesting. A lot of the women, I mean, they all talked about how they made friendships with each other, friendships that'll last forever.
I really, really liked seeing that too, because I think friendship is honestly, in a lot of ways, just as important as finding love. And so if any of them were already feeling maybe isolated or something, just having new friends, I think can really help that.
Yeah, I think so too. And then kind of getting back to Gerry and his picking Teresa, I feel like it made a lot of sense because they had such similar backgrounds. They both had married high school sweethearts who had passed away. They had where they could show they had, committed to someone for 40 plus years or however long it was. And I kind of think that was with the other one, Leslie. She had been married, 2 times?
I think so.
And what made me kind of sad with Leslie was she just lost it into hysterics when he told her that he wasn't picking her. Is that normal for them to totally lose it like that?
I've seen it happen. They're always devastated, especially if they're in the final 2. I wouldn't say it's completely common. I mean, they're always devastated, but I think that typically, I mean, you're up against someone else. And so you kind of have that reality. I think for her, he reassured her so much.
Yeah.
And that was why she was positive that it was going to be her. And so I do think that made it a lot harder for her.
Yeah. Well, and then of course, we don't know what happened in the fantasy suite with them and what he said in there, but it made me sad as she was saying, she had already picked out her dress. She had, had written their vows. I mean, she did all of this, which, maybe she kind of jumped the gun a little bit, obviously, because in this kind of show, I guess you don't know until the very end, who they're going to pick.
Yeah, I felt really sad. She said something crazy. I think she said, and I don't know if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. But I feel like she said something like she spent $60,000 on a dress or something.
Yeah.
And it was like, what? Oh my gosh.
Because, so I had a question about. Do they usually go out there in a beautiful dress, the two of them standing next to each other? Is that what she was talking about? Because I assume that was normally how it was, but he told her in not private, obviously, the whole world got to see, but not standing up there with her with the rose ceremony.
Usually they both go down separately, but they dress and everything as if they're going to be proposed to. It's very sad.
Oh,
so they literally go. Yeah, they go down completely alone and essentially either get broken up with or proposed to.
Oh God, that is so brutal.
Oh, it's horrible.
I don't know. I would not sign up for such a thing, but that's just me.
Oh, no. I wouldn't sign up for it either. I like watching it though.
But yeah, so I think that's what she was talking about. Do you think, was that what she was saying? Because she would have had like a beautiful dress, or do you think she meant the wedding dress she was going to purchase?
I think she meant the dress for the engagement.
That's what
I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know again why she wouldn't have already had one prepared for that day.
And why would it be $60,000?
I know. I was like, what does the $60,000 dress look like? I don't even know what that looks like.
Spun from gold, maybe. I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah. So. Hopefully she could return it.
Yeah, hope so. Sorry, Leslie. But she kind of was, I kind of felt like she was showing her true colors towards the end there when granted, she was upset. She was like, this always happens to me and nothing ever works out for me. And she was saying stuff like that, which was kind of, I don't know, it was a little icky.
Yeah, I think the way a person reacts to not being chosen or something, it does show a lot. And so I didn't love the way she reacted. I mean, she has a reason to be sad.
Sure.
But yeah, she kind of didn't maybe have to throw such a pity party. I don't know. But maybe she was just in a really bad place. So hopefully she's seen that and grown from it.
Yeah, I hope so. Which just shows you no matter your age, we can still grow.
Yeah.
We're not perfect. So I made some notes because when they were talking, I think I watched 3 of these. I was trying to get caught up last night because I watched in the beginning and we did our show, the podcast, and then I didn't watch. And then I'm like, okay, I got to catch up so we can do the finale. But I was taking notes along the way. And I think this was maybe the very end where everyone came back and they were all dressed up, all the women that he did not pick. And they were all, sitting there talking, kind of doing a little recap. But I just wrote down some of the things that they said that resonated with me, which I thought was great. They said there's no age limit on love, which is so true because I think a lot of younger people think that just because someone is 60, 70, 80, 90, that that they're not interested in being in love. And I know Gerry kept joking a lot about with the guy. Who's the guy who's like the host or whatever, the young guy?
Oh, Jesse.
So he's kind of joking around with him, which, about that doesn't matter his age, that he still has sex. And then he was kind of making him visualize his parents. And, that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I think that's so true. There is no age limit on love. And so why do people in their 20s and 30s or whatever think that they're the only ones who can have love? So,
yeah. I think too, it's really good even for young people to think of it that way, because I know people for example, people that are my age so I'm 30 and I have friends that are my age and they think because they're not married yet, they're never going to find love basically. And that's so not true. I mean, you can find love in your 40s and your 50s. There's not oh, you've turned this age, you don't get to get married, you don't get to have love.
Exactly. So, yeah.
And
I think Yeah, and Gerry and Teresa just proved that, 72
Mhm.
and 70, and they found love. Actually, Gerry found love with a lot of women, apparently.
They all loved him.
They really did.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, so there is no age limit for being in love. Then the other thing, I think they asked, I should have written down who this was, each person, but I think they may have asked what the biggest thing they took away. And one of them said to have hope that they can still have adventure, still have love, and still have friendships. It can happen at any age.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Because I feel like, a lot of people do feel hopeless and probably women more than men, to be honest, that probably, that if you're 75 and you really want to have a love in your life, I mean, you may feel hopeless or you may feel like, your adventures are over if you want to travel. But I mean, I think this just proves that you could have it at any time. And you know what? I was very impressed that they went, what was it, like rappelling or whatever in Costa Rica down
Mhm.
that waterfall. I was like, oh, heck no, I
Yeah.
would not do that.
Yeah, they always make him do something really dangerous or, risky like that
Yeah.
on the show. No, that doesn't look fun to me either.
No, there are so many reasons I would not be on that show.
Yeah.
There's another one. And thankfully I'm married. So yay. But I was impressed that he did that at 72 because I mean, I wouldn't
Yeah.
have done that at 32. That looks scary.
Yeah, they did a great job doing that.
Yeah, they really did. And she was scared. That was Leslie who did that. And she was a fitness instructor too.
Yeah.
But she was scared of the heights, which I would be too.
Oh, I would be scared.
Yeah, the whole thing was just a big no for me. Oh, the other thing that made me kind of sad, and I have heard older women say this, and I do think this is a thing, but Joan, who was a really lovely lady, one that he went on a date with, and she had to leave the show because she had an emergency at home. But she said, as you get older, you become more invisible.
Mhm.
And I thought that was
Yeah,
sad.
I think that is really sad too. I can see where she's coming from though, just because the way society paints older people,
Mhm.
really values youth and beauty and success. And, as you get older, you're kind of past a lot of, and not that you're not beautiful or not successful, but you've
Mhm.
done a lot of things, I feel like. And so you start to maybe lose that value in yourself because you're like, well, I already had a career and I already had my youthful days and my family's all gone, they moved out or something. So I can see that would be really hard, kind of an identity crisis for some
Mhm.
people. 'Cause
Maybe
I know some people,
so.
yeah, I can see some people in my life that are older adults, and I've definitely seen that. They
Mhm.
have really had a kind of a personal crisis, and I think they do feel very invisible.
I think that's why it is so important. And we hear this over and over from so many older people that you really need to always have a purpose
Yeah,
and
that's
something in your life. Always learn, always grow, and don't get into that mindset that I'm old and I'm just going to sit here and watch TV and I can't do this, I can't do that, because I feel like that's what makes you old when you just give up.
Mhm.
And I always think of Doug Brown and I reference him all the time. He's 98. I've had him on the podcast. He lives here in
Oh,
Flower Mound. And I had him on the podcast and he talked about people always ask him, how do you stay so, young? I mean, Doug is he's 98, but he's
mhm.
sharp as a tack. He's going, he's busier than I am.
That's
And
great.
I know. And he says to them, when you retire, if you sit down, you're going to die. You have to have a purpose. You have to volunteer. You have to find something. And I feel like that kind of does go with, her feeling, invisible as she's gotten older. I mean, there are things that are going to happen. Yeah. I mean, in society's values, with women, we're probably our most beautiful, in our 20s and 30s, and then we get older and we have wrinkles and maybe we have a few pounds that creep on at menopause. Just saying for a friend, just kidding. But, it's a sad thing that people feel that way. So I hope maybe with the Golden Bachelor and people talking about that maybe that will turn the mindset around for some women as well. The other thing one of them said was just being on the Golden Bachelor and having that attention that Gerry gave them made them feel special. And one lady said it ignited feelings that she hadn't had in a long time. And I could see that if you hadn't had a man like listening, and he's a good listener. Like I saw that he really did make each woman feel very special. So I think that was definitely a positive.
Yeah, he did. He really was like very, very attentive and like kind. But I think too, the women on the show, even if they didn't get, chosen, they've all had really great exposure now. So that can, launch a lot of different things for any of them. I mean, it could launch careers, it could launch new friendships, like new love opportunities. So I was thinking like with Leslie, like she was so sad, but I mean, she came off pretty well overall on the show. I think that she could definitely have opportunities come from being on.
Well, I read something that they may have a Golden Bachelorette and maybe she would be that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So there we go. Opportunity.
Yeah. Is that usually what happens? The one not chosen has the next show?
It's not always the one not chosen. It's usually the like crowd favorite.
Okay.
So it's usually someone in the top like 4, but it's the crowd favorite, and it switches every season. So this was the Bachelor, so then it'll be the Bachelorette.
Yeah. Who do you think was the crowd favorite with this one?
I don't know, maybe Leslie. I personally really, really liked Ellen, and she was, I think, top 4 or top 5. And I just thought she was awesome. Like, and I think even
was she the pickleball one?
Yes.
Yeah,
pickleball.
Yeah, I liked her.
Yeah, I just felt like she seemed really comfortable in her own skin and confident and kind. And I don't know, just someone that like would be a really good grandma and family member. I don't know. She just seemed like very selfless. So I liked her a lot. Okay. I kind of wanted him to choose her, but I would actually love to see her on the Golden Bachelorette if there was opportunity for that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So we'll see what happens. Maybe your prediction will come true.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know if she was other people's favorite, but she was definitely mine.
Yeah. I don't know who my favorite. I mean, I just always from the beginning, I liked Teresa for him. I just felt like they were a good match. And she just seemed really sweet and attentive towards him. So I just, yeah. So I'm glad that worked out. Me too. And hope it works out for them.
I hope so too. I really hope so.
Yeah. Are you going to watch the wedding January 4th?
Probably. Yeah. I'm just curious about it.
Yeah. I probably will too.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know that they've done a like live wedding of the Bachelor or Bachelorette before. If they have, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious just to see how that like plays out.
I wonder if the other bachelorettes are her bridesmaids. Boy, that would be awkward.
Yeah, like all 22 of them or something. Oh, that'd be hilarious.
Leslie glaring at her. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that I wrote down here that I thought was interesting and true, I don't remember which one said it, but they just said, maybe it was in response to the question, like, are you glad that you had this experience? And it was just that, if nothing else, they made history together with Gerry because this was the first time of doing the Golden Bachelor and to really showing people that no matter your age, people want to have a companion. They want love. They want the same thing. Even though we're in an older body, we still want everything we wanted when we were younger.
Yeah, I think it did. It has made an impact too. And what I actually really hope is that, because I mean, like I've said, I do watch a lot of reality TV, and I would love to see other reality TV shows start to show older, characters and cast members. I just don't see that a lot in reality TV specifically, or really, I mean, you see it on sitcoms and stuff. You'll see like they typically have like an older character, but yeah, I just in general, I'd love to see that represented more on TV.
And you know what? I honestly think we're going to see more and more of, instead of like in the past, anytime there was an older person on TV, they were like the, grandma or the, grandma baking cookies or the nutty old uncle or whatever it may be. But I feel like we're going to see more just very, powerful women as we're, older women and men, we're going to see people doing, just looked at in a different light, not looked at as some silly character or someone that of no importance, which, it shouldn't be that way, but that has, how TV historically has been when you watch a sitcom. So I think we're going to see more and more like this show. Was it Frankie and Grace? Did you watch that show?
No, but I know what it is.
It was a good show, but I liked their characters. They were strong women. And I just think we're going to see more and more of that because we're aging as a society. And before long, we're going to have more people who are older than younger. So it's just going to have to change.
I'd like to see that a lot too. Yeah, the strong characters. That would be awesome.
Yeah. And that's how it should be. So I think this is kind of opening the door for that too.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too.
Did you get any feedback from your peers on what they thought of the show and of the finale?
Most of my friends liked it. I would say some of them maybe wanted Leslie instead of Teresa, or they wanted Faith, who was the third in line.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think most people, I think there was like an overall, I haven't really looked on social media or anything, but I just know from the people in my life, there was like an overall good reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just kind of made sense together, I think. So, yeah, good reaction overall.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, I look forward to seeing if we'll have a Golden Bachelorette and maybe it'll be Leslie or it'll be, who was the one that you like again?
Oh, Ellen.
Ellen. So maybe it'll be Ellen. So we'll see who that'll be. But if it comes back, then, maybe we'll do another one of these podcasts and see what we think.
Sounds good.
But thank you so much, Sarah. I always love having you on here, and it's great to get your perspective and your expertise as a reality TV show watcher.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks for listening, y'all. And let us know your thoughts. I really do want to hear what you think of the Golden Bachelor, if you watched it, what your thoughts were, no matter what your age is. I just think it's interesting how, what we all take away from it. But thanks for listening, and be sure to share this podcast with your friends and family and tune in next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.